A holiday back-to-back for the Bucks as they look to get back on track here in the Eastern Conference standings. We preview the next two matchups coming up after this on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day, and for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And, of course, you can hear me on every single Bucks game. You can find Camille on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. That next Bucks game is tonight as they left early afternoon, I think, yesterday on Christmas Day. They came home after the Pacers game and got to spend all of Christmas Eve at home, the first half of Christmas Day, before flying out to Memphis to take on the Grizzlies. And it's a Memphis Grizzlies team, Camille, I can't really get a good sense for. Injuries, stop me if you've heard this one, but injuries continue to be a big story with the Memphis Grizzlies. And I suppose the benefit for tonight's matchup, if you're the Bucks, is you are going to be catching them without Zach Edey, who I think was very polarizing coming into the draft, but he has been impactful for the Memphis Grizzlies. Mm-hmm. He's going to be down for an extended period of time, though, and this is a Memphis team that started the season 4-11, and they've basically crawled back to 500 now, going 10-5 in their last 15 games. So they've been playing a much better brand of basketball, and they've had some wins over some good teams, too. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Mm-hmm. They beat, what was the other nice win? They hung tough with the Thunder the other night, but there's some nice wins in there for the Memphis Grizzlies. So, I feel like, stop me if you've heard this before, too. We talk about every time the Bucks win, and can you build some momentum and start to pick up some steam with this train? Something derails it. But today, as I check here, it's December 26th, Camille. Mm-hmm. It is nearly 2 months to the day that this team has won consecutive games. So if they do it tonight, the last time they did this, it would be 2 months ago to the day that started the back-to-back wins.
So crazy. So crazy. We've talked about how different things felt after those first 5 games and then how things have gone since then. But tonight is an opportunity for the Bucks to try to do something they haven't been able to do really for 2 months. And that is stack wins. Got to stack wins. You have to, if you're going to try to climb out the hole that you have now dug yourself into at this point. And they're catching a Memphis Grizzlies team, as you said, that has been hurt. Despite that, they have found a way to find themselves back up around 500 again. So I do applaud Memphis for that, because the various injuries that they've had to overcome throughout this season, like there was a stretch where they didn't even have a point guard that was healthy to play the game for them, like no guards. So that's going to be good for them. I did see, Ja Morant and Cedric Coward are both questionable tonight against the Bucks. So if they do play, we're going to be able to see a rookie that has been making his mark so far this season. And we know what Ja Morant can be when he's on the court. So something to keep an eye on with the injury report for the Grizzlies as well going forward. But it's a Memphis team that, they can turn the ball over a fair amount. Does probably help the fact that they haven't really had too much consistent point guard play this season with the injuries that they've been facing. They get to the free throw line more than the Bucks, but is that really saying too much given how rarely the Bucks find themselves at the free throw line? The one thing I will say about the Grizzlies that they have been doing really well throughout the season is keeping opponents off of the offensive glass. They've been top 5 in offensive rebounding rate for the squad, and they haven't fouled much. They've been second in free throw rate defensively. So that's 2 areas for the Grizzlies where it's like, hey, we don't tend to give up many offensive rebounds, and we don't tend to foul that often. And for the Bucks, over the last few games in particular, I'm not going to say that I feel like they've had a focus on offensive rebounds, but they have found themselves grabbing
better,
and creating some more second opportunity chances for themselves. So I'll be curious to see how that looks against Memphis tonight. And the Bucks, we know that they've been trying to get to the free throw line a bit more often. Difficult task to do, even when they had Giannis, and without him, it's been a little bit more difficult. But Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, some of those guys, even Miles Turner, have been doing a really good job of just trying to draw fouls. So I'll be curious to see if they're able to do that tonight against Memphis as well.
So the Zach Edey thing, to just wrap that up too, he's basically, I think he's missed 2/3 of the season for Memphis. He missed the first couple weeks to start the season. He hasn't played in the last 6 games. But your point about the rebounding, they have a decent amount of size on the perimeter, that they have basically a roster full of guys that the Bucks would love to have, of bigger wings that can get out there and defend and rebound. But Zach Edey has been instrumental in that for Memphis, in that when he's been on the floor, they're plus 20 in net rating, and they have a 95 defensive rating. When he's been off the floor, and they've been, I believe, either the best defensive rebounding team in the league in those minutes, or they're in the top 3. When he's been off the floor, they're basically minus 7 in net rating, and the defense jumps up to a 120. The rebounding comes down a little bit as well. So, he creates a lot of those opportunities. So without him there, as you mentioned, 2 of the big names we don't know on quite yet in Cedric Coward and Ja Morant, but this should be something that the Bucks look at and say, we can take advantage of this, because it's a small sample size. I get that, but we've kind of reached the point, Camille, that we'll take anything that we can get here on the season. But the last, I want to say 6 games for the Bucks, which I would encourage nobody to view it under this threshold. But they've been a top 10 team on the defensive glass. I think they've been hovering around the top 10 in overall rebounding. Offensive rebounding, the Bucks have made some strides. It's gotten better, but they're never going to crack the top half in the league. But they've at least come down from dead last there. So they've started to piece together more and more of that, and they're going to need to continue to do that going forward here, especially against Memphis. And you pointed out the way that they like to play. And, I feel like rinse and repeat. We're going to say the same things before every game. We say it, me and Dave, before just about every broadcast too, with what are the keys to the game? Well, protect the basketball, try not to commit so many fouls, and get this free throw discrepancy up to where it is. And can you do a better job? Like, we're not asking you to be elite, just continue to get better on the glass. And it feels like the Bucks have at least consistently done 2 of 3 in those categories for the last 2 weeks, maybe a little longer than that. But the next step is, let's start to check off all of those boxes here. Would also help to get some bench production, and you've started to see that come a little bit more. One of the guys you would ordinarily lean on for it, I would guess he's not going to play, but I think the Bucks perhaps dodged a bullet here. So we'll take a look at the latest status of Gary Trent Jr. as we continue to get you set for this matchup coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Time to talk to you about our friends over at Robinhood, as it's that time of year now to start thinking through all of these things. What if spots were traded like markets? Well, now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not just you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving in action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. The season's heating up. DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes on absolute point. Nights when your team can stress you out, so let DoorDash become your post-game therapy with that dessert that you sometimes need right now. Late night interviews hit and suddenly you need chips at midnight. Well, DoorDash is built exactly for that. And if the group chat says pull up DoorDash, make sure you show up prepared. Snacks, cups, even a phone charger for that friend that's always at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. All right, Camille, the bullet that the Bucks potentially dodged here. So Gary Trent Jr. is listed as questionable on the injury report for this game tonight with a left calf contusion. I would assume he's not going to play if for no other reason than his immediate reaction to that injury. And what did you think when you saw that replay? Because I watched it in real time. As you watch the play happen, it just seemed like, man, there was a lot of contact there. And then when you see the replay, there wasn't that much. It was Gary Trent Jr. kind of maneuvering his body and avoiding contact. It came down in the aftermath. But even that, you had to slow down and watch several times over to see the kick that actually happened. Like at first I thought, man, did he land on his knee? And this is something that we're dealing with just with the reaction he had. It didn't look good. And it was one of the times where you saw him being helped off the floor. Giannis had to help and be the second helper to get him into the tunnel. That I just knew, like, we're going to get a notification from the Bucks relatively soon here that's just going to be Gary Trent Jr. out, will not return. And sure enough, it came maybe 10 minutes after that. Yeah. But I just prepared myself for the worst, thinking, all right, even with the struggles, he's still a warm body that can hit shots. And as we said, you need everything that you can get. I'm kind of preparing myself for Gary Trent Jr. to be out 2, 3, or 4 weeks now.
Yeah, that's what it was looking like based on his reaction to the injury. And I was just kind of like, this team just cannot catch a break. That was like my first thought of like, man, it just does not seem like health is on our side right now. Seeing him get helped off the court in that way. And then, like you said, watching the replay a few times, I was like, okay, he got kicked. And then it looked like Siakam kind of came down on that calf in addition to that too. So like some additional pressure on the fall. So it was just kind of like, man, I hope he's all right. And when he was ruled out as quickly as he was, I was like, okay, now we're going to have to see what this looks like because you just get AJ Green back. AJ Green, who is still trying to find his shot since returning from injury. And so, okay, so we had another guard return to the rotation. Now you lose another guard. And it was just kind of like, man, where are the Bucks going to go now from here if there's no Gary Trent Jr.? So for an extended period of time. And it's not as if Gary himself has been shooting lights out or anything like that, the way we saw him shooting at the end of last season. But his numbers in December seemed like they were somewhat trying to peak up there. He had a few games in there still where it was like 2 of 11, 1 of 8. And you're just kind of like, okay, keep shooting through it, Gary. But like, we got to try to figure that out a little bit better for you. But he was shooting like 38% from 3 so far this month, last month as well.
Yeah, so, no, like, not to cut you off. It's just like, the numbers don't match the eye test, I think, for a lot of fans that you would just assume, like, man, Gary Trent Jr.'s got to be really struggling through it. I mean, but he was, 43% was it last year on threes? Yeah. But even then, like, it obviously started to kick in before this point on the calendar. But, it's easy to forget when you see the final shooting line of Gary Trent Jr. a year ago. It's easy to forget how brutal it was the first 10 days or so. It's you can't afford any more injuries at this point, even with guys that are struggling, just to find different groupings and combinations. Like one of the things we talked about with, I think we both disagree with Ryan Rollins coming out of the starting lineup is you have to find everything. And that may go against, find something here by bringing him off the bench. But no, the bigger story is you need to start your best players, right? Like, we can overinflate how important it is to start the game because your minutes played and who closes is the most important part. But I would venture to guess, Camille, your starters are typically playing the most minutes on your team. And there are other ways, I mean, you, me, and Frank talked about it, to find those spots where you have one of those two guys on the floor at all times by not just saying one of you is going to start and one of you isn't. But it's beyond that. It's, all right, we need to see how all of this works. So Ryan with Gary Trent as our backcourt, or KPJ with Gary Trent, just as we would try those guys with Miles and eventually Giannis when he returns. You just need to be in the discovery phase right now to see and reinvestigate everything that works for this team because of how much of a malaise November and the first half of December was, that now you're back in we've seen better habits forming. We need to see it more consistently, and we need to see it across the board. But we just need to find lineups and groupings that work, because Doc and his staff would be the first to admit our bench hasn't been good this year, and we're still trying to discover what that mix is. Well, if he's going to, and again, we don't know that he's going to miss this game tonight. I think we both would assume he will.
Yeah.
But if he's going to miss even a couple of games, it just stunts that growth possibility again.
Doc talked about trying to find the silver linings during this time period while
several
Giannis
times he has said
a lot of times he's kept reminding, like, it's going to happen somehow. And one of the areas the Bucks have struggled in historically since Giannis has become who he is just trying to not so I don't say survive the non-Giannis minutes, but how productive can we be? You survive the non-Giannis
Yes.
minutes? Well, this team for sure. But I was thinking in years past, I'm not sure I would have used that language as strongly as this year. But have you found anything that you feel like, hey, this can actually work? This is a lineup that we're cool with. If there's no Giannis on the court, we can roll with this going forward. I can say they might have found certain combinations, but nothing that makes me look
you
at
haven't found a 5-man group.
Yeah, like this 5-man grouping, I can see it playing. I haven't seen that yet. But I think for me now in this phase, because we know that when Giannis does come back, everyone's roles change again because of just the player that Giannis is. He's going to have the ball in his hands. It is what it is. And that's part of like the Ryan Rollins conversation of like the adaptability of Ryan Rollins so far this season, of being that starting guard with no Kevin Porter Jr., then adjusting to playing with Kevin Porter Jr., and then going to adjust again when Giannis comes back. And I think for me right now, what I'm really looking at is, like I mentioned, can the Bucks stack wins? Because you have to. Looking at the standings, you got to win some games here. You got to stack some, got to go on a run. But what I really want to see too tonight in Memphis is also, what does the Rollins-KPJ minutes look like? Because the last game that we just saw them come out with against the Pacers, that game was fueled by the backcourt of Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. playing really well together, bouncing off each other. Like, how can they build on that against Memphis as well, is something I'm looking for, because even though I haven't seen the big 5-man groupings, to your point about the importance of KPJ and Rollins and how like it seems to make sense to play them together, or make sure at the very least you always have at least one of them on the court at all times. How does that continue to look, the two of them getting used to playing with one another and getting those reps in? That's the aspect that I'm really looking for with this game. And with no Gary Trent Jr., it feels like the ask on them is going to be even a little bit more heavy, of just a sense of like, hey, the minutes played, what's required of you. And it would be a good game in Memphis as well for AJ Green to try to find that stroke again after getting that rust off after being out with this injury.
Yeah. We had somebody, I forget who it was, but I saw it in the comments on YouTube, and I think they reached out to us on social too, recognizing one of the phrases we've thrown around a couple of times in recent games for a t-shirt idea. I have another one that we can add to the mix here, Camille. So we'll get into that and recap what we saw yesterday coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the fast, big runs that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments. Not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in, as the app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without guesswork. You can browse the Game Time app. It's a straightforward process and intuitive, where it finds tickets in just a matter of a few taps and moments. You see the view from your seat before buying, makes choosing tickets easy and confident, and the prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. Well, the holidays have passed, Camille, but it doesn't mean we have to give up on finding gifts for anyone else. If you have someone that you need one that you missed, too, if they're a big fan of any of our Locked On products, especially Locked On Bucks, you can make them a part of the Everydayer Club here. You can find the URL to sign up for it in the episode description of today's show. For you or that other someone that is in on the action here, you get exclusive perks like ad-free episodes of each and every show here on Locked On Bucks, compatible with Apple, Spotify, and all major podcast apps. You also get the invite to the members-only Locked On Discord server, which includes a group chat just for the listeners of this show. Again, find the URL to sign up in the episode description of today's show. I mentioned the T-shirt idea. We had the couple games away from being a couple games away. Yeah, you mentioning adapt, and that was one of the words that I thought about with Ryan Rollins throughout this season. His adaptability and finding ways to adapt lineups around him. I'm not throwing this out there to diminish. First of all, I'm not a dog or animal person, pet person in general. I don't know if you deviate on that, Camille.
Oh, I love dogs.
Okay. Well, I'm not making light of the adopt, don't shop here, so we'll get that out of the way. But, I mean, just a picture of Ryan Rollins with the adapt, don't swap. Like, that's what we need. Don't swap him out of the starting lineup. Just find ways to adapt him out there in those minutes. So we'll get working on that one as well, in addition to the couple games away from being a couple of games away for the Bucks. So yesterday, how many of the games did you see yesterday in the 5 games?
I saw most of Lakers, Rockets, and Thunder Spurs, but the rest I was kind of in and out. And then by the finale of Nuggets, Timberwolves, I'm a little washed. It was a long holiday. I fell asleep and woke up and was like, dang, I missed a good one.
Yeah, I saw all of Knicks Cavs, and
I saw the ending of that one too, yeah.
I didn't really see any of Thunder Spurs, which was the game I wanted to see the most, and I confused when it was. I thought it was the third game of the day, but I was traveling, so I basically, my 2+ hour commute that I had was during the duration of that game, so I had to listen to it and hear the ending, which proved to be anticlimactic. But yeah, the rest of the games, I just had no interest in Warriors Mavs coming in. And like, on the one hand, great. Yes, you should showcase the number 1 overall pick that's as hyped as Cooper Flagg. I don't need to see the Mavericks on Christmas Day, even with Cooper Flagg and knowing there's no Kyrie and it's Cooper Flagg and AD. Like,
AD got hurt again.
Yeah, like maybe we can find another team. The biggest snub of the day is obviously the Detroit Pistons. Which you can say, how was the league to know that the Pistons would have been the 1 seed coming into the season here? Kind of similar argument that the Bucks had in that 18-19 year, where it was the Bucks and Raptors, and the Bucks weren't on Christmas Day until the following year. But like, it was right there for you, right? Like, you could have done Pistons Knicks as your first game of the day in a playoff rematch, and still found the Cavs and Celtics, even without Tatum playing. Like, do Cavs Celtics, something like that. But I didn't see most of the Timberwolves Nuggets game because I was like, going back and forth, and especially we're living through it, but seeing the starting lineup for Denver, like, all right, I'm going to do some other stuff and I'll just check in on this one. And at the very end, I saw, okay, this is close, and tuned in basically for the Anthony Edwards game time 3, and then saw overtime. So I saw, all told, I don't know, 40% of the games, which I typically will watch parts or most of every single game, on especially days when we're not playing. And I mean, the lineups themselves, the matchups themselves, much better on paper than the matchups we got for the NFL here. Yeah. But again, you just run into it's 1 of 17 games, and those games were actually competitive and down to the wire and had some stakes in them, regardless of the quarterbacks that we saw. Like, there's just no escaping this if you're the league. That the unfortunate thing is, this is your day, but now the bully wants some of it as well, and they have the advantage of these games mean more.
Yeah, they do, because you look at just the time in the calendar, right? The NBA, people say NBA doesn't begin until Christmas Day, which I've always hated that phrase, but I get that's when a lot of people who aren't
Yeah, it clearly
necessarily,
starts with the Emirates Cup.
of course, it's respect the cup, hashtag respect the cup. But I get it for like casual fans and everybody who's not like living and breathing NBA every day. Like I can get why it's like, okay, I'm kind of waiting until Christmas to tune in because the season is long. I'm watching NFL right now, whatever the case may be, but you look at the NFL, it's like there's only 2 more weeks left and then playoffs. But for the NBA, you still have 2/3 of the season to go. So I can see why there are more people on Christmas Day who would be looking to watch NFL over NBA, especially just given that there were playoff stakes at hand, even with the backup quarterbacks that might have been in the game. And for the NBA side of things, like they got to continue to adjust. They have to adapt themselves because the NFL has always been king in America. Like that is the sport of the country. By the numbers, NFL has always just bullied the NBA, period. And then you have them on the same day head to head. I'll be curious to see what the numbers actually do look like, because I know there were some people who, if deciding between the two, were like, well, I don't really know those quarterbacks, I might not watch. But there are others who are just like, on principle, because of where these seasons are, I'm going to watch the games that feel like the stakes are a little bit bigger than watching the NBA. But my favorite thing from NBA Christmas actually was just after the Lakers and Rockets game and seeing JJ Redick have a mini crash out of just like, I'm not doing this for another 53 games. Effort's not there. They got to be better. And I was just like,
I'm going to call your bluff on that, JJ, because
you talking about LeBron, bro?
Well, I think it's 2 guys. Like, great. I don't disagree with much of what you said here, but let's apply it to all 15 guys on the roster, not 13 of the 15 here. But yes, that was certainly the most memorable part. That and Ant's shot. I do think the league, at least, I think this was the best mix of games that they put out there in quite a while. They got it right in terms of, you can gripe over only 2 Eastern Conference teams, but especially when you look at the conference this year, like, well, do you really have a leg to stand on here? And the fact that, I said, and I would assume it would be this way for a lot of our listeners too, but if I just told you of these games, of the 5, what is the one you have the least interest in? I would guess it would have been Mavs Warriors, and both of those teams too, like, it's a Warriors team that kind of feels like what we've been going through the past couple of years of like, guys, you're just not, nobody's being honest with you. It's over. This isn't it anymore. They at least put those 2 teams against each other. So you didn't have to suffer through 2 games where it was like, oh, Warriors, Lakers again. And oh, great, Mavs versus Spurs, something like that. So they at least said, okay, here's the game that if you're in, you're in. If you're not, we're not tainting, 2 games with these matchups here. So I'm very curious to see what they build on with this next year. I would assume the Spurs are a staple now. And man, that rivalry now, Camille, you had the Spurs winning again against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who
3-0.
3 of their 5 losses this season to the Spurs. You had the 56-point triple-double from Jokic. You had that shot from Anthony Edwards in the same game. You had the finish to the Knicks-Cavs game. So there was a lot of really, really, and you had JJ's crash out. A lot of really, really nice moments here on Christmas Day, and it just makes me eager to see what we get next year in terms of matchups here on the schedule. But, a big stretch here. We've continued to say this. At some point, they're going to win back-to-back games. I assume this is a good opportunity on this road trip. And we said, man, even if you could somehow go 4-1, it's not the most daunting road trip. If they can do that, Camille, number one, they'd snap the streak of not winning back-to-back games in nearly 2 months. But if you can go 4-1, you're right back in it at 16-18 then. And you have, 2 home games then, the first week of January, or New Year's Eve, and then the first week of January, against the Wizards and Hornets, where you have a great chance to be 500, or even at worst, if you go 3-2 and then get those 2 games, you have a chance to be 17-19, something along those lines.
Right there back in it, because of everything else that's going on in the East. Like, honestly, the Knicks beating the Cavs was like a thanks, Knicks. Like it does help because it continues to drop the Cavs in the standings, and that's a team that the Bucks are looking up. I mean, they're looking up at the Knicks too,
They're
but
looking up at everyone, basically.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like the Cavs are
Yes.
coming closer and closer with the losses there. So it's all still in play. It's all still in play. And then just to wrap up, last thing I'll say, because I saw this this morning talking about Christmas Day and stats, because people were moving around in the stat board on Christmas Day after the games played, but all-time Christmas Day 3-pointers made. I looked at the list and I was like, oh, there's Chris Middleton tied at 9 from the stretch of Christmas Day games the Bucks did have. What was it, five straight we had there from 19 onward. So shout out to 22.
Wait, he's number 9, are you saying?
He's tied for 9th all time.
I thought you were saying he made 9. Like,
oh, no.
really?
He made 20 over the 5.
Yeah.
So he's tied 9th all time for 3-pointers made on Christmas. So shout out to Chris Middleton. Shout out to the run the Bucks had on Christmas as well. And we'll be curious to see when they get back on that stage again.
Yeah, I miss it. Part of me doesn't miss it either. You got some interesting games tonight. The Heat and the Hawks, as they're both basically 500 lumped into that group. The Raptors play. You got the Magic and the Hornets. So we'll see if Charlotte can sting another opponent here. Bulls, Sixers, maybe that and the Heat, Hawks, the most juicy matchups. And then you got the Pistons playing as well. So we're going to continue to see movement on a nightly basis in the Eastern Conference standings. Can the Bucks be in that group that's moving north is the big question. We'll recap the Grizzlies game and the Bulls game that we got coming up tomorrow as well. So we'll get you a couple of recaps coming up here on your next listen. We thank you as always for tuning in to Locked On Bucks. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you get all the latest episodes each and every time we drop them. You're notified as well in those instances when we do go live. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen with NBA game nights on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We will talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.